Good afternoon, everyone. I, Shashank, on behalf of NEN and Vadhani Foundation, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also introduce our expert. Mr. Vivek Agarwal is the CEO of Liquid, an organization dedicated to exploring how technology can be used to make high-quality education and training available to the billions of people at affordable prices. Before Liquid, he founded eGurucool, which emerged as the pioneer in the field of e-learning in India, combining a unique learning methodology and a huge infrastructure of technology and content creation processes. He has done his MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, where he majored in finance and business strategy. Before I hand over the floor to Vivek, here are a few reminders for the audience. You will all be on mute. You may ask a question by typing in the panel provided. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Shashank, and good afternoon, everybody. I am today, as you can see, the title Improvements and Innovation in Education, and I have put a subtitle of my own, Opportunities for Entrepreneurs. I am basically going to share my, what I'm going to share today is based on my experiences of last 18, 19 years, where I have, I founded one company, eGurucool, which I sold off, and I have raised, and then I started Liquid, and I have raised a total of about $15–17 million in funding, and set over debt, equity, convertible across the platforms. We've tried different models. So what I'm going to talk about today is a summary of what I see today in the environment and what my experience has been so far. I hope you find it useful. So we begin now. First, a quick context, right? I think everybody knows that the education system is very large, right? There are maybe, 200 million students in the school segment. There are probably 20–25 million in the higher education segment, and so on and so forth. There is a huge government and private, government sector and private sector, bunch of stuff. But here's the paradox. I have met so many students and so many people who just passed out who are all wanting some kind of jobs, and jobs are not available of the number and the quality that students, these people want. And similarly, I've met enough companies that want, and my own experience, we'll keep looking for trained people and we don't find them, right? So there is a massive paradox. Now the whole question is, for the education and the training system is how to bridge this gap. And I think that's a challenge that if you can solve a part of this problem, it would make for a great business opportunity. And, and when you look for solving a problem, by and large today, I think the quantity problem in terms of number of schools or colleges or availability, courses available, vocational training, I think quantity is available. There are enough, broadly speaking, I mean, you can always do some maths and say there's some shortfall, but broadly speaking, enough infrastructure and all that is available. But where the challenge is quality. We know the challenges in the government system, where the system of risks and rewards and incentives is very inadequate. We also, the private sector is not really lived up to its promise. There is the real problem today is of quality and not of quantity. And as you think about the opportunities and improvement in the sector, I think this is what is a fundamental thing you need to grapple with. And an environment is changing quite rapidly. right? The biggest story in town, as it were, is the skills story over the last 3-4 years. Before, in the last 25, 30 years, the way skills evolved was this whole, IT training companies like NIIT and Aptech built large companies providing training on IT. And since about, starting from 2000, and particularly from 2008, the industry has been going through a bad phase. It was a B2C industry. I mean, NIIT always got students from the street and trained them and sort of placed them, whatever, and everybody did that. So it was a B2C industry. Over the past 6-7 years, 5 years or so, it's become more of a B2B and a B2G industry, where companies are supplementing their B2C business with a B2B business. So, for example, ICICI may ask a company to provide 500 people, and the company will source the people, train them, and provide them. This is a B2B model. And then there's B2G. There's a large initiative in the government to train and skill the young people. So companies, so government is giving money to companies. Here is 5,000 or 10,000 per candidate. The companies are supposed to source the students or learners and train them and then place them. Right? One of the big initiatives in the skills area is NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation, which is providing a lot of subsidized funding to companies that want to get into the skills training area. And they've been very aggressive last 3-4 years. And I think this represents a quantum jump into the way training is going to be delivered. Training is going to function in the environment that we're in. Another important development, which is linked to NSDC, because these are supported by NSDC, sector skills councils, which are councils that have been being set up for different industries. So IT, automotive, retail, and so on and so forth, which are defining what the curriculum needs, what the curriculum should be for getting employment in that particular particular industry. One of the big challenges of the industry, of the Indian training industry, has been that there are no certifications, right? So Infosys, when it's looking for an engineer, doesn't rely on any certification. It just hires and through its own methodology and then trains them and makes them productive. But if training providers had a certain certification, Infosys said, or if L&D said that here is a level at which we train the people, and then we'll employ them, the whole training industry will really boom. Right? So sector skills councils are a huge effort in this area. So that's a very interesting thing. The other thing is, in terms of the growth of mobile phones, and particularly Android-based. Till 2, 3, 4 years ago, most of the phone market in India was low-end, sort of the Java phones that were being imported from China and other places, and there was no standardization. So you couldn't build any apps for the mobile phones in India. The smartphone market was very, very small. Now, the Android, really growing fast in the Indian market, phones becoming cheap. Now you actually have a way of addressing that segment using mobile phones. And riding on that alongside is the growth of internet. Today there are probably 130, 140 million internet users in India, and that's growing by about 50% a year. So in 2 years, it probably double of that. And that's a very powerful phenomena. So you can really leverage technology, which is my next point. I mean, any opportunity you imagine, scalable in this, any initiative that you want to do in this segment, which you want to achieve large impact, has to leverage technology at its core. And there is this very interesting. Some of you may have heard this terminology MOOC, right? Massively open courses, okay? These are courses that you know, a lot of universities in the U.S. Have started, and you know, sort of you can learn online from professors from Stanford and Harvard and others, and free of cost, right? And it's really creating a huge amount of interest and excitement in the industry as a possible way where technology can really achieve huge impact. And so some form of technology has to be there. Now, just a quick sort of perspective on the market. I'll tell you, and this is not any framework that I picked from book. I mean, this is just something I have used. So I divide, you know, very loosely speaking, India into 3 segments. There is what I'm calling international, which are the, you know, the relatively rich people in India. You know, about 2 to 3% of the households, which means about, you know, 5 million households in this country. Then there is the rest, the sort of what is traditionally called the middle class, right? So income between 2 and 10 lakh rupees per annum. And below that is what you might call Bharat, right? I mean, you know, in a political terms, this is sometimes a Bharat, India. So I just use that term. But, you know, when you look at a market that you want to address, the international part of the market, you know, let's say the premium schools that charge 5,000 rupees and above as monthly fees, may be a market for software. So if you have great school educational software, you can sell it to these companies, these schools. But they're very small, so you can't build a model there. You have to think international. You have to think, you know, beyond India. The bulk of the market, the CBSE, the bulk of the CBSE schools and sort of the colleges and others is what the India market, what I'm calling the India market, is not really a market for software, right? A B2B software market there, very difficult to, you know, the success, the companies that have had some success in schools, Smart Class, you know, EduComp, and some companies which have gone through a mixed phase, but, you know, whatever, they were very successful at one point in time, and that's all been a hardware bundled offering, right? But this is the market that is a consumer market in India, and if you want to do a consumer story, this is a market you need to go after. Below that is what I'd call Bharat, you know, which is bottom of the pyramid, as it were. But this is low income, but large numbers, and otherwise they don't have the ability to pay. But the way you reach out to them is through the institutional market. So governments will pay. If you want to reach out to, you know, government schools, the government will pay, or corporates may pay as part of the CSR initiatives, and so on and so forth. But it's not a direct, it's not a market you can realize money from directly. Right? So this is a useful framework I have found, you know, as I think about the different opportunities that we should be addressing, and that is something for you to think about. Next, you know, when you talk about technology, right, there are 3 things typically, three arms of technology solution. There's content, there's technology, and there's services. Okay, a very loose framework. Today, content is available, you know, dime a dozen, right? All kinds of content is available for free on the internet. I mean, you must have heard of the Khan Academy, right? There is MIT has put all their stuff online, for all free. You've got, you know, there's MOOCs that I talked about. A lot of content available free. So pure business model based on content is perhaps not advisable. Technology, when I say technology, I mean, you know, the learning management system, the assessment management system, sort of the infrastructure, the webinars, you know, a webinar like this, the GoToMeeting, for example, a lot of these softwares are available, right? And so it's commoditized in some sense. So the answer really lies in services. It is, you know, basically services is a very loose term, very broad term, focused on making is to say, how do you make the learning work? How do you put the different pieces together? Analytics, how's the learner doing? How's the teacher doing? How's the benefit? Personalization, learning, one of the biggest challenges, how do you see, one of the biggest sort of barriers to effective learning is when the there are different levels of learners in a classroom. So some learners may find the material too easy, some may find it too difficult. Personalization is a great thing, but how do you make it happen? Right? So that is the real question that you have to deal with as you get into thinking about a business that you want to build. And what should your business approach be? Now, I meet a lot of young entrepreneurs every month, right? And I find that people are just a little less focused than perhaps is desirable, right? So if you're looking at, let's say, K-12, a school segment, right? Pick up one area, pick up maths, or pick up chemistry or physics or whatever it is, and try and make that work for the user. Within maths, pick up class 7, quadratic equations or whatever it is, right? And make that work. Make it work for the user so that the user learns, and also make it work for the system. It has to be easy to implement. It has to fit into the existing approaches. It has to fit into the existing paradigms. It can't be. You can't expect that everybody will change, or add a lot of new infrastructure and all that just for the solution. So those kind of things, right? And once it works, then scale it, right? Also, one thing to keep in mind is in India, any business, and more so education business, takes time, right? You can't build a 100 crore business in 3 years or 5 years, right? It will take much longer than that. And you've got to be patient. You've got to build it brick at a time. One of the big things that people, I think, I've seen a lot of people ignore is actually, say, the distribution. I've met maybe in the past month 5 or 6 companies that have got interesting products that schools can use. Robotics or astronomy or or some personalization engine, lots of different stuff. But how do you sell it? It's a very large market. It's there are probably 100,000 schools in India. 30,000-40,000 of them have some sort of ICT usage already, so they're a better target market. But how do you reach out to them? The simple thinking of keep on adding salespeople is not an easy solution, right? It doesn't quite work like that. So one thing is very, very important is sales and distribution. How will you reach these customers? And school principals and owners are, I think, some of the most challenging customers in the world that I have come across. They are spoiled. They have they have dozens of vendors approaching them every week, right? A lot of times their focus and reason to buy things may be very different. Different. It may not be just academic. They want more as something they can talk about, something they can show off. So lots of different reasons, right? And it's easily one of the toughest segment too. It looks very appealing from outside, and it looks very tempting, but it's tough. Okay, so you really want to think about it before you jump into it. Okay. Now, my last slide, I think, on funding, right? you know, the first thing is money is available. Okay? If you have a good idea, you'll be able to raise capital, right? If you have a good idea, you have a passion for it, you can build a good case, money is available. You can go to the angel networks, you can go to TIE, you can go to there are lots of different places. You can you can find people who are willing to invest. However, building a plan and the right idea, well, idea is still relatively thing, but find the right niche and building a plan that will scale is not so simple. And that's, I think, I've seen a lot of people try underestimating or or making less effort than they actually would. The first thing that I found is establish your objectives. Right? What do I mean by that? Basically, do you want a company that is you want to build a scalable company, or do you want to build a lifestyle company? Right? What does that mean? Scalable company, you would get typically, you can try and attract venture capitalists or angel investors. You keep scaling, raising cash, you keep diluting yourself, and then you exit, right? So you're not a promoter or you're not the owner of the company, you're a founder of the company. Right? If you want a lifestyle company, which is you want to, I had this incident where I had several years ago, there's this gentleman who came for a mentoring session, and he brought his son along, and he said he was asking me how to raise. He wanted to raise capital for some business he was doing, and I asked him, do you want your son to run the company after you? He said yes. I said, then you shouldn't be raising venture capital, because that's not how. It's not a family enterprise then, right? And it has got to be. You've got to look upon us as a founder. As a professional, you may not be even running the company after a few years. You've seen it happen in so many large tech companies around the world that founders get replaced by professional CEOs and so on and so forth. Right? If you want a lifestyle company where you want to do what you like, you want to be, you want to do it with your friends, you want to just pass it on to your family or whatever it is, then don't raise venture capital, right? You may raise debt or you may raise family money, but venture capital is not the way to do it. And I don't know if you've seen this movie Jobs. It came, and the very clear difference between the two founders, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So Steve Jobs is clearly the scale guy, and Steve Wozniak, he is clearly the lifestyle guy. He said, I just want to build a company that can just to have fun, just to do what we love to do with friends. A very different this thing. But assuming you're clear on that and you do want to build a scalable company, then you start with angel funding, right? Start small, build a prototype, make it work. Like I said, pick a. So, for example, I had this guy I've known for some time, and he wanted to build a company for IIT coaching and online technology content on coaching, right? And and I told him that when you take one topic and you just sort of have you prove it that topic works, right? That the way you're doing it, it's really helping people learn, clarify their concepts, and so on and so forth, and then you can stretch it, right? But then I didn't hear from him after that. Obviously, he didn't think, so he was focused on building a lot of content first, and then he said, I think it's the greatest content, and so on and so forth, right? So I think that's not the right approach. You've got to do things, prove it in a small setting and then scale. That's the main thing. And I'll just, end on a final thing to say that there's plenty of opportunity. Right? There's absolutely no short. I think technology and education is going to be huge, right? And it represents a great opportunity. However, it's not easy. It's difficult. It will take time. So dream big, but have patience. Build it brick by brick. Thank you very much. So we'll take questions now.
We will begin with the question answer round now. There are quite a few questions lined up for you, Mr. Vivek. The first one's from Muhammad Hafiz. He asks, what are the 3 key points investors will look into an e-learning startup which allows free contents to the higher education sector?
So just from answering, so what are the 3 points investors will look for when they fund a company in the education sector? That's the question, right?
Yeah, that is the question.
Okay. So, like I see, the first question is, what is the market you're addressing, right? So who's the customer? Is there a large enough market for your offering, right? So it has to be a large market. Investors love a potentially large market, right? Second is competition, right? Is your product differentiated? And is it sustainable? I mean, can it sustain with competition? I mean, how will you compete, right? So there has to be a USP. There has to be a differentiator where you can say it's better than competition, right? So customer, competitor, and the third is the business model, right? In terms of, will you be able to make money, right? Will you be able to make money? So if you have a product that customers love and it's a great product, but they don't want to pay a price on which you can make money, then there's no business model, right? So can you make money on it? So those broadly are the 3 things that you really need to convince the investors.
The next question is from Sudhakaran. He says he has heard about online tutorial. He wants to know how useful it is for our nation to both tutors and students.
So, to say how useful it is perhaps I'd put it slightly differently. I think it's a great way of bringing together students and teachers that would otherwise not be able to come together, right? And therefore, it's a great way of scaling the education offering. Right now, I'm able to talk to all of you here today because of technology. Similarly, if there is a great teacher who is able to reach to students online, I think it's a great thing. And all the MOOCs that I talked about is an example of that. It's very powerful, and not least because all the data is being captured. So as a student, what do I do? How much attention I pay? How many questions I answer? All of that stuff the teacher knows, so she can act on it. And secondly, because I can reach out to so much large number. So I think it's a great thing for both.
Tejas Patel has the next question for you. He wants to know, how is the market of soft skills training in India?
So yeah, I mean, that's the market I play in. So I'm very bullish on that market. The fundamental thing is to look at it. You've read these statistics that only about 20% of our graduates or engineers are actually employable, right? And I think a large part of that is because of soft skills, because of the lack of soft skills. So there are 2 ways of looking at soft skills. One is things like handling irate customer or having the right etiquette or or even presentation skills, and so on and so forth. Now, and then the second thing is English, right? Now, because the language of business in India, and actually if you involve English, so soft skills and English are used interchangeably, right? And because English is the language of business, so you need to look at it as English language and then soft skills. The market is huge. I think every company, every college, every vocational training institute, every school is looking to improve its students on these areas. My own estimate, because I work in this market, is that the English language soft skill market is about maybe a 700-800 crore market in India, and growing. So it's a big growing market in my view.
Gaurav Chakotia has the next question for you. He wants to know whether he can find opportunity in usage of digital content to penetrate the Bharat group you mentioned. Can we find CSRs funding high technology education?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is enough. Now, I don't know, I'm not, the question is, do you, if you had a business that developed content in this segment, right, I assume that's the question. So you would find plenty of, if you had some great stuff that worked, I think there are plenty of people at an institutional level, there are multilateral agencies, there are large companies, there are governments that are willing to put a lot of money behind helping the so-called underprivileged people come up to speed. So there's plenty of opportunity there.
Jay Shankar has the next question for you. How about cloud-based e-learning solutions in India? Is the market here yet open to such a technically advanced platform?
Yeah, so see, it's not about the platform, I think. Cloud-based, I think it's a great platform not because technology is not, because it's easy for a learner to use and easy for price. And as increase in internet penetration, I think the technology-wise there is no problem. The key challenge is what do you use it for? And I think the first area two areas where I think the market will start with. One is distance learning universities. Okay, so I think distance learning universities will get in very aggressively into online cloud-based learning. Second market that can be leveraged is the consumer market, because the internet penetration, I believe, will hit the consumer market much faster than it will hit the enterprise market. And with the need growing, I think it's a great opportunity.
Faizan has this next question coming up for you, Vivek. He says, you talked about distribution of product or services. What are the innovative channels you can suggest for the same?
So, see, the way suppose for argument's sake you have a product that you want to sell to schools, okay, and that's the largest market. Now, the way to think about it is, who are the people who are selling into schools, right? So see, publishers have big reach into schools. I mean, there are hundreds of publishers that have large sales teams catering to thousands of schools each, right? So that's channel. Then you've got all these companies that have built channel. Last 10 years, you've seen a lot of companies like Educom and HCL and TeachNext, so on and so forth, that have 700 salespeople going into schools. They have a distribution reach into schools. There are hardware vendors, PC manufacturers who sell to schools. There are uniform manufacturers who sell. So you have to choose people who have distribution into schools, already have a reach, and are therefore able to, and obviously they should have some fit with your product. If you have an education product, then you probably don't want to go with a furniture manufacturer or a uniform manufacturer, right? So you have to have a fit there. But that's something to be evaluated on a case-to-case basis. But I think just look for people who already have reach and talk to them.
Shirish Ghosal has the next question for you. He wants to know what are the biggest challenges you have faced while selling a product to an educational institute. Also, is there a difference in selling to a school versus a higher education institute?
Yeah, so first question, in terms of challenges, I think, you see, the challenges are two, I put it into 2 or 3 categories. One is, there seems to be a mindset that, software should be free, right? A lot of people tell me, oh, you can give it on a CD, what does it cost you, right? So the value of IP and the effort that you may have put in to develop and all, I think is not fully appreciated. And there is a related point. Second point is that there is a tendency that I can do it better. I can do it more quickly or better. Right? What have you got to offer that I can't do faster or better? Right? A third point I would say is that there is not enough focus on actually academic orientation. I mean, and that's true for both schools and colleges, where a lot of owners tend to be, real estate people or somebody who has a steel forging mill and has started a school or a college, and they just they have a very different view of they just look at it as a pure business, and which is fine. I mean, it's a business, nothing wrong with it. But I think that academic focus is somewhere missing. So that's the first part of it. Second part, in terms of schools and colleges, I think one big difference is that there are just so many more schools than colleges, right? In terms of the ownership and in terms of the sales process, I think in college system, there is the money is bigger. I mean, the per student is realization is much more typically than on an annual basis, and sometimes you find and the government system in higher education is willing to spend, right? In terms of selling to the private guys, selling to a school and a college is pretty much the same. There is not much difference.
Jay Shankar has this next question for you. What is the kind of support being provided by the government for technical startups focusing on the educational domain, especially given the initiatives from the central government like Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, etc.?
Yeah. So you see, the government is basically a large buyer of services. They don't they have some small initiatives where they fund, like the NSDC, the skilling thing I mentioned to you. That's 49% owned by the government. It's pretty much a government initiative. They're giving soft loans that allow you to do some R&D and do all that. So there is some amount of that support. It's not very large, but it is there, and you can do it at a small scale. But in terms of the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and all, the government is just acting as a buyer, right, to put ICT into schools or primary schools, secondary schools, and so on and so forth, right? So there, a large part of investment in the last 10, 15 years has gone. All the private companies have actually, some of them have become quite large on this government business. So that's, if you call it support, but otherwise government is a real is one of the biggest buyers of all kinds of education and technology products.
Gaurav has another question for you. He says, as it is in the US markets, organizations like Coursera are completely funded and don't really have much of a revenue model. How can he get such technology-oriented era in a country like India? Do you see it happening in the near future?
Yeah, so that's right. I mean, that's a very good point. Coursera and edX and all don't have these business models now, but those business models are emerging. Okay, so one of the clear value propositions is certification. So you can do a complete degree, you can study online for free, but if you want a certification, I think one of these MOOC platforms, I think Georgia or somebody I heard, Georgia Institute, is charging $6,500 for certification. So you take an exam and you get a certified as a master or whatever it is, right? So sometimes they charge for live classes, right? So I think the business models are emerging, right? How can you do it in India? I think you will definitely do it in India. Is there a business model today that you can replicate? There isn't, but then that's the opportunity, right? If there was a business model today, it wouldn't be an entrepreneurial opportunity anymore. But I think there's an opportunity to build a business model around that.
The next question is from Kunal Gandhi. He says that he's working on a tablet-based math solution for the school. He wants to know what is the right pricing model for it. Is it going upfront for tablet and then annuity for software, or is it combining software and hardware as an annuity stream, or is there another option that you will suggest?
So it's a very interesting question, a very typical dilemma for everyone trying to set the schools. Hardware, what I have seen, so the short answer is there isn't a clear model that's got established yet. There is nobody who sold tablets on a large scale to any school or to schools in India in any significant way. There are 2-3 models, like you have said, people have tried are getting students to buy it up front and then and charging for the software. My advice would be to de-link the two, right? Selling software is a tough market, but if you have really great software and it works, the ideal thing would be to do tie-ups with either hardware vendors or with people who are more hardware people and are willing to put a solution together and go to schools.
We'll be taking the last 2 questions for the day. The penultimate one is from Hamsa Iyer. She says that good value education requires teachers who can bring in this kind of learning. Technology can only go to a certain extent. So what do you think is the kind of skill development that you need to be investing in for that?
For the teachers, I suppose the question is. So,
yes.
I mean, I completely agree that teachers are wonderful for education. But here is the problem. If we could guarantee that every student who wanted to learn had instant access to a great teacher, you probably never need technology. But the fact is that's not the case. Most teachers are not great, right? So therefore, you need technology. So you need technology to empower the weak, the not so good teachers, so that they are also able to give a good quality learning experience to their students. Now, how you do that is by building tools that support the teachers. So, for example, we do this a fair amount. But if I take example from something that we've done, English language learning, how do you? So the same question we asked ourselves, and one of the small ways we solved it is, different parts of India, people speak differently. So in Calcutta, somebody might say super, and same person may say super, or Delhi might be super. So you have a lot of regional variations. Through a multimedia software that our teachers use, they're able to, we ensure that students are getting one input, right? One right way of speaking. So there are lots of different things you can do to empower the teachers using technology. The teachers that are not so good. And that is where the value of technology lies.
The last question for the day is from Celine George. He asks, do you have any suggestions on how startups in the higher education segment should go about sales and distribution?
So, I mean, there are no, and I don't know anything about the business of the person who asked, so it's very difficult. I'll answer in general terms, is to, find channels that are already existing. I mean, people who are already selling into these colleges and universities, and go with them, so distributors or whatever it is. Secondly, find things that add to your product, that make your product more saleable to colleges. So, for example, university endorsement or industry endorsement, so, and focus on marketing, making your product case studies, the effectiveness, demonstration, and so on and so forth. Right? So no easy answers, but I think selling to these colleges as well is quite tough, and it would just be so much easier if you could find a channel partner. And it's not easy. I mean, there are no large channel partners waiting to sort of take your product and take them to 1,000 colleges. But you'll have to find your own feet. I mean, you have to find your own niche. But I believe it can be done.
Thank you very much, Vivek, for that interesting session. Thank you to all our attendees for participating in the webinar. We are glad that the questions kept coming in, but due to a lack of time, we are unable to answer them all. Please do send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org, or you can also tweet at @NEN India with hashtag webinar. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available at www.youtube.com/user/eclubNENonline by tomorrow. Also, join us for our next webinar on managing growth by Mr. Soumen Majmudar, the CEO of EduSports, on 25th of September at 3 p.m. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.
Thank you.